Hello YouTube, this Skip coming to you live straight out of Real Hot 6 Aquatic Kennels. Woo! What a beautiful Sunday, May 3rd, 2015, and my man Money Mayweather had another successful victory over a great opponent. So I figure, why not top it off with this particular video that come by you by way of special request. Let's take it in the aquarium building. Woo-wee! Right before you is a fish that you probably haven't seen in a while. Big Baraka. Look at him. Awesome specimen. Woo, I mean, beautiful, solid, muscular Amphilophus Trimac. Or Trimac, some people like to call him. AKA Pyro Trimac, because he's off a 20-year lineage or bloodline or pedigree. A pedigree that I have created or started creating at least 2 decades ago. Now let's get into the topic at hand. This video I am going to explain the difference between this, a Trimac, Pyro Trimac, and a Flowerhorn. And this particular topic was requested to me by a few guys on Facebook and came by way of emails and even a couple of phone calls. So I'm going to do something I normally don't do. This is something new for me, in a sense, that I'm actually going to give the names of some of the people who requested this video, just for my record, so I can keep track how many times certain people ask me the same question over and over again, and I know whether or not they were paying attention to my videos. So as I stated to you, this video was by special request. One from a guy named Tommy Mailman, and he posted it on Facebook that he wanted me to explain the difference between a Pyro Trimac and a Flowerhorn. Also follow up on Facebook, Rob Burry. You guys may know Rob Burry. He has some beautiful Midas Cichlid, orange Midas Cichlid that he purchased from me last year that are awesome. They bred, they're looking good. He's out in Delaware. You need to check out his YouTube page. And you can check him out on Facebook. He requested this video as well. Also, James Jones and Scott Roy emailed me and requested me to do the same video, and that's one of the reasons why I'm making this video today, because so many people genuinely wanted to know what was the difference, because they can't tell. Latoya Roberts asked me to explain the difference between Trimacs and Flowerhorns. So let's get right into it. The rocket just keep moving out of sight. Right before you is a prime example of a Trimac. This is a lineal Trimac. I call it that because, like I said, he has a pedigree. I know his genetic background. I've been breeding Trimacs for over 2 decades. And why is this important? Because I am considered by many, not by all, but by many, a reputable breeder. Of course, you do have your haters, but I can't focus on the haters right now. I got to focus on the 90% people who are positive and appreciate the work that I do. Like I stated before, this fish comes from a background of Trimacs. I have bred different, multiple genetics Trimac species to one another throughout the years. Just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, in recent years, I have bred Bojack, I have bred Trapjaw. Those are male Trimac studs. Rodan. Rodan was a wild caught specimen. I bred the Great Kazoo. He was another wild caught specimen. We might get a look at Great Kazoo later on in this video. And I also bred Big King Bison, a domestic bred Trimac, but off a different bloodline, so it has different genetics that are not related to my Pyro Trimac genetics. And I bred the majority of those males to Miss Pikachu. I had another female named Cherokee, and Miss Pikachu, Cherokee, Bojack, all those fish were all mystic. You can go on my old videos years ago and you can check those out and you can see the fish that I'm talking about. So I've always outcrossed. You got to understand these terminologies too. You can pick up my book, Skip's Guide to Keeping Real House Cichlids, on Amazon.com, or you can purchase it directly through me. And I touch upon line breeding, inbreeding, inline breeding, and those different terms in my book. I talk about that. I break it down so you guys can understand the difference. But for you newbies or neophytes who have not read my book or have not been in a hobby as long, such as Latoya, she hasn't been in a hobby long, and all she knew when she was coming up was Flowerhorns. She didn't even know that Flowerhorns came from Trimac. She didn't know what a Trimac was. So I'm making this video especially for people like that. Here before you is a Trimac. One of the main things that you can tell the difference between a Trimac and a Flowerhorn is Flowerhorns usually have, that look like Trimacs, we call them low grade, so-called low grade Flowerhorns, have pearls throughout the body. The red in their cheek area and their chest can exceed past a quarter length from the gill plate. 9 times out of 10, if that red go too far back, see where that spot is, or where his perpetual fins end. If it go past where the perpetual fin end, when it lies flat on his body, if the red does, that's in his chest area, 9 times out of 10, it's a hybrid. Also, like I said, the pearls in the body. In fact, let's take a look at a couple of female Trimacs, or I should say hybrids, Flowerhorns that look like Trimacs but display those particular examples that I just told you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the aquatic community in YouTube, here's a photo of a female Flowerhorn. Notice the red far exceeds. Let's see if we can point it out. Far exceeds the 25% ratio from the gill plate. Matter of fact, the red in this fish is almost beyond half of this fish body, a third. Notice it does display the flower, which I call the third eye. Yes, the bars are displayed like a breeding dress of a female Trimac, but there's just too much red in this fish. Also, the eyes aren't completely red. The eyes are more of a yellow orange hue tint to it. Basically, it's orange. Trimacs have pure red eyes. Also, if you notice, there's a lot of pearls in this fish body, all in the fins of this fish, and there's a lot of red in this fish top dorsal fin. And this is a female, and it's not displaying the black blotch in the dorsal fin as well. All female Trimacs, which very few exceptions always have black in the dorsal fin. Every once in a blue moon, I mean 1 out of 1,000,000, that you may get a purebred female Trimax that doesn't have a black blotch in the dorsal fin. That's very, very rare. And that is a very rare recessive trait, which I'm going to get into in another video series about hereditary and recessive traits, since there have been a lot of talk about particular recessive traits in especially my Pyro bloodline. I feel that I'm obligated to discuss that. But here's the look at a female Flowerhorn, which looks very similar and close to a Trimax. And let's take a look at some other photos. You see what I was saying? You see all the pearls in the female's body? Now, right before you is Big King Bison. This is one of the studs that I was mentioning to you, that I mentioned to you, that I was trying to tell you about. He's a domestic Trimax, pure Trimax. He's not a Pyro Trimax. He's a regular Trimax. And what I mean by regular is he doesn't have a 20-year lineage. He doesn't have a pedigree. We don't know his pedigree. We don't know his ancestral history. That's the difference between a Pyro Trimax and a regular Trimax. So we can get that out the way and clear. But look, he has a lot of red in his chest area too, just as much as Baraka. But it does not exceed the perpetual fin where it ends. It does not exceed more than 1/4 from his gill plate. Also, the red does not come up consistently all the way to the top to where they call the flower, I call the third eye. It can come up with little specks, but it doesn't shoot up straight red. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, right before you is my wild caught Trimax. You can see slight differences between it and the Pyro, and that's just because of the genetic evolution that took place during that 2-decade, 20-year-old lineage time span. Of course, as your lineage grow older, it should get better with time. And so there are certain genetic traits that I isolated and I sort of highlighted because I like those particular traits. And it shows up more so in my Pyros than it do in regular Trimac Cichlids. I just shook them up, I just turned on the light. But as you can see, Kazoo's a wild caught Trimax. But look how the red comes a little bit higher than King Bison and Baraka as well. He's showing a lot of red, but it's not going beyond that perpetual fin right there. The ending of the tips of that perpetual fin, if it lays flat against the body, it's not going beyond the 20% of the body mass between the gills and the body. Also, it's not reaching past the flower with a full red lateral span. So if you notice, one significant difference between Trimax, and this is a pure wild caught Trimax, and Flowerhorns, that's one of the differences. Now check out this female Flowerhorn, which they even asking whether or not it's male or female. That's what's screwed up about when you start hybridizing and you mixing up genetics. You make not only yourself confused, but other people are confused. You need to have a lineage. Check it out. Again, another photo
of a Flowerhorn. They even asking if it's male or female. Now we know if this was a true Trimac, it would be a female just by looking at the dorsal fin alone. But it's questionable when you mix genetics and you produce something that you don't know quite what the sex is or what it really produce. Now this fish right here before you will fool most people. It is a good copy of a Trimac. And I say copy. But there are some telltale flaws in this fish that I can see that make me question whether or not it's the real deal or whether or not it's a hybrid. And here's one thing I can tell you guys. If you question it, if for some reason you look at the fish and you're not 100% sure that it's a purebred, then plain and simple, just don't buy it. It doesn't make sense to purchase something that you didn't really ask for. The best way to get the real deal, to get pure Trimac Cichlids or Pyros, is to go to a reputable distributor or breeder and make sure that they have a pedigree. So you can look at the family lineage, the family tree, and go down parent by grandparent and see what's in your fish bloodline, so that you know that you have a purebred and not a hybrid if that's not what you into. But I can see this fish here selling in a local pet store or even at a wholesaler as a Trimac, and most people will fall for it, but it's not. This is a hybrid, a good clone of a Trimac, but it's not a Trimac.
You see what I mean? Now check out a true Trimac. This is a Pyro Trimac. This is Miss Lexus. Beautiful specimen. Look at her coloration. Now she got a lot of red too, and it goes up close to the third eye. That's through time though. That's constant breeding over and over again. Different genetics and DNA from different Trimac species, breeding the best of the best. So you have to understand this. Aquarium raised breeding is much better to me than natural breeding. And when I mean by natural, nature's breeding, nature's way of breeding. Because you have a little bit more control. It's a controlled environment. Nature, two of these species may breed, and the strongest may breed in the wild. But that does not mean that the offspring that it produces is going to survive. The strongest offspring is going to survive. It can get eaten up by a predator, or anything can happen. Pollution, get caught by a fisherman. You never know. Whereas here, throughout those 20 years of breeding these Trimacs, I kept the best of the best and kept breeding the best into the best into the best and outbreeding, outcross breeding, outline breeding, until I got this product, what you see today, and this product, Young Capone. Miss Kaya, my royal Pyro Trimac bloodline and lineage. And like I said, line breeding, pedigrees, family tree lineage is not limited to dogs or people who breed animals or fish. Human beings have pedigrees, people. The Queen of England, they have a pedigree. They have a royal lineage. You can look it up online. Just go all the way back to the king, the prince, the dukes. Everybody, yourself, you have a bloodline. You have a lineage. There are a lot of people on the internet right now that are hating because they didn't introduce this system to this hobby first. So they hate on it, talking about we don't like line breeding, this and that and another. Well, what are you doing? If you're breeding cichlids, you're line breeding. As soon as you make that first step into breeding, you initiate that first step, that is called line breeding. No matter what you say. And some of you guys are practicing a step that is taboo to most, and that's inbreeding. You're taking a batch of siblings from a fish and you wait till they pair off and breed them. That's inbreeding. I told you that's a practice that I do not like to practice. I do inbreed to the sense that this is a half brother of this fish, Miss Kaya, and I will breed these two in the future. They have brothers and sisters, and technically speaking, that is a form of inbreeding. But it's in line breeding, out cross breeding, meaning that his father is different from her father. They have two separate fathers. They have the same mother, but they have two separate fathers. Their genetics are not that close. This is how you bind the genetics. This is how you keep a bloodline lineage going. You can't just keep breeding separate wild caught fish and claim you have a bloodline, because they got to have a family tree. They have to have a line that goes back to the first fish. The connection between these two fish right here is their mother, Miss Pikachu. She is the binding glue that connects these two particular bloodlines. So actually I'm covering a few topics in this one topic, telling you the difference between Trimacs and Flowerhorns, so you guys can really get an understanding. Let's check out some other photos. Next, I'm gonna show you a photo of a flowerhorn that looks very similar to a pyro. This flowerhorn is a golden monkey flowerhorn, and is allegedly stated that it's bred with a Pyro Trimac. This is one of the few flowerhorns that's bred with my bloodline fused in it. Now forget now, flowerhorns came from Trimacs. They were first. They were naturally here on Earth before the unnatural man-made flowerhorn. So check this photo out.
Here's another photo of a flowerhorn. This is also considered a low-grade flowerhorn, which looks very, very similar to a young Trimac, which will make it very difficult to tell if this fish was to enter the marketplace or a pet store and they was to label it Trimac. This will fool most people. But like I said before, you have to understand that flowerhorns derive from Trimacs and other species crossbred. So in some cases, you're going to get some flowerhorns that look exactly like the real thing. Their genetics dictate that they have to emulate and imitate the species that they were crossed with. Now, I can see with the naked eye that this is a flowerhorn and it's not a Trimac. But I have years of experience. My eyes are trained to detect certain subtle differences that would allow me to determine what this fish is. And it is definitely a hybrid. But a person who don't have a trained eye like myself, I can see you being fooled by this fish. Now this next photo is a photo of a golden monkey flowerhorn. Now it's alleged that the golden monkey flowerhorn was crossbred with a Pyro Trimac, not just any other Trimac, a Pyro Trimac. And one of the clues that you have before you that may be true is the black trimming around the gold finish of this flowerhorn. Plus, this flowerhorn does not display any pearls whatsoever in the body. It's a pure yellow gill and yellow body mass. Has lateral lines, but they're all connecting, which is a dead giveaway. It has right there the globe, which is a birthmark that's on a lot of my Pyros. It even have black slit in the dorsal fin. But this is a golden monkey flower. A beautiful hybrid, to say the least. And could very well fool certain people who have not been in a hobby long enough to tell the difference. But one thing for certain, pure Trimac does not develop a knuckle hump like this one. This one is more like a synspillum. And even some cases, black nasty Haitiensis also get humps very similar to this one, but not a Trimac. I don't even think a Midas will produce a hump this round in this formation over the eyes. A Midas will cliff up a little bit. So this fish definitely has some synspillum in it and pyro in it. But other than that, I couldn't tell you what this fish was crossed with or hybridized with. But this is another illustration of a flowerhorn that has Pyro Trimac characteristics and markings.
Wow. Now that was a beautiful flowerhorn, but it's not a purebred. And so if that's what you're looking for, a flowerhorn, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't have anything against flowerhorns, people. I want you to know that. I don't agree with the practice, but I'm not hating on the people who practice it. They're entitled to do what they want with their money. They spent their hard-earned money to buy those fish and produce those fish, and their time. There's no FDA regulations in this hobby. There's no law against hybridizing. They've been hybridizing dogs, horses, everything. Even people are considered hybrids if you go by the very definition of hybridization. Species with a difference. Now let's take a look at some other photos that I have been collecting on the internet. This one is a pure example of too much red. Cause I've been telling you a lot about the red that's in that chest area, like here with Miss Pikachu and her son Anubis. I'm getting a little glare because of the light from outside. It's a beautiful day outside. Look at that sunlight. Miss Bayron. So let's take a look at some other photos, and then we'll close this video out.
Now this is definitely an illustration of just entirely too much red in the upper chest and facial area. It's going almost a quarter to the back, halfway to the back. This is definitely a Flowerhorn. And plus, as I said before, Trimacs get a hump, but it clips off by the eyes. It does not protrude over the eyes. And look at the lips. The lips are Midas type lips, not Trimax type lips. Okay, aquatic community. Let's go over this one more time. First, true Trimacs don't have pearls all through the body. Now, some of you guys may get a little confused as to when Trimacs are juvies and their bars and the blue speckles that goes through their bars and their lateral circles may show up in their body and appear to be like pearls, but they're not. You can tell the difference if there are pearls all through the body and it looks like this, like that, all in the red area where the chest area is, behind the gill plate, then that is definitely a Flowerhorn and not a Trimax. Let's see another shot. Here's one that illustrates that perfectly. See how all the little pearls are through the body of this fish. All in the red area, all up in the top of the dorsal fin. This is definitely a Flowerhorn and not a Trimax. Also, remember when I explained to you, Pyros and Trimacs don't get knuckle humps, especially like this. They do get humps, but their humps never protrude over their eyes. It'll usually go up and it'll drop down like a cliff. It's almost squared off like on a true Trimax or Pyro. It doesn't come to a complete round circle like this, and it does not protrude over the eyes closer lined up with the mouth. This is definitely a Flowerhorn. And I'm also going to do a video explaining the difference between some Flowerhorns, like this one, and Midas. Because you have a lot of Flowerhorns that look exactly like Midas as well. And so I'm going to do a video on explaining that as well. So now this looks like a nice Pyro, but it's not. It's a Flowerhorn. Red gold more than beyond a quarter behind the gill plate. It has smooth scales. You can see how the scales are just like a Trimax. Some people mistake that for pearls. That's just the lighting reflecting off the scale line. These are pearls. Plus this fish has pearls all in the dorsal fin, tail, and it's just too many pearls, too much red. You can have some red, but not too much red. So this is definitely a Flowerhorn. So I hope this was very helpful to you guys. Here's another illustration of a fish, a Flowerhorn that looked very close to a Trimax. But as you can see, now Trimax and Pyros alike have that lateral line, and it can have 6, 7, it doesn't matter. The average Trimax does not have 3 spots. Looking for a 3-spot Trimax is like looking for a 4-leaf clover in reverse. It's just very rare and hard to find. But this right here, the way they're connecting, definitely Flowerhorn. Has a slit in the dorsal fin.
Well, how about that, YouTube? I told you guys it's going to be a whopper. You're going to talk about this video for a long time to come. And I hope while you're discussing this video with some of your friends in the aquatic community, and maybe share this video on Facebook and other cichlid blogs and Anthropus communities, I hope that you guys learned something. I hope that I was able to get the point across about the difference between the hybrid species called the Flowerhorn and the purebred species called the Trimacs, aka the Pyro Trimac Cichlids. So before I wrap this up, I want to touch on one last point, and that is this. I know that there are going to be a lot of people that's going to have sharp opinions about this video and about some of the points I made in this video. And that's fine with me. I understand that. Like I always say, documentation beats conversation all day long. So, with that said, I have a question for some of you guys. Where was some of you guys, and I'm talking about the guys that hate and watch these videos without any appreciation whatsoever of the hard work that it takes to make these videos, where were some of you guys, some of you critics? And I don't mind critics, people. We need critics, but we don't need haters, because critics base their critique and information off documentation and facts. Haters base theirs off emotion, their emotional attachment to their prejudiced opinions about the subjects. And with that said, where were you guys when I was fighting 10 to 15 years ago for the very existence of this species of cichlids to be distributed in this hobby? I'm not saying that Trimacs were not in the wild, because you can easily catch wild caught Trimacs to this day. They're not on the endangered species list, but they were an endangered species within the cichlid trade 10 to 15 years ago, when Flowerhorn cichlids sales was at an all-time high. I even asked major distributors and breeders where were their Trimacs, and they said, why sell Trimacs, man? The Flowerhorns are selling for hundreds and thousands of dollars. They wasn't even collecting these fish. These fish was about to go into extinction within the trade itself. Like a fish that I could think of called the Pyro Cichlid. This fish right here. This is a Pyro Cichlid. But if I ask the average person in this hobby to describe a Pyro Cichlid, they would describe this fish here, a hybrid that came on the scene long after the true Pyro Cichlid was in the trade. And that's real talk, people. This species right here before you, the Pyro Trimac, which is a Trimac Cichlid, could very well not be around if it wasn't for Skip fighting for its existence, showing my bloodline off to the whole world if they would watch and for them to see. Now, I truly believe if this fish was an unattractive cichlid, no one would even care to hate on pyros. But the fact that they are beautiful and that was carefully calculated on my part to make sure I breed the best of the best, so that one day this species will not become this species, almost non-existent. Although they are in the trades and you can find them in some pet stores, people rarely discuss that fish more than they discuss this fish. This fish is more popular and selling at a higher rate than the true parrot cichlid. So with that said, this Skip, you know the saying,